So to all of the single adults out there, you probably found out that dating in the current year can be pretty annoying. I've seen so many YouTube channels lately just blowing up that talk about all the problems with dating. And while this channel technically isn't all about that, even my video from a while ago about why dating apps are all so bad is becoming my most popular video. So I wanted to put together sort of a guide to dating apps, because I've been using them on and off for almost 10 years now, and I want to sort of share some of the tips and the things that I've learned over time. Now, this is not going to be a guide on how to get as many matches as possible and get lots of hookups. Now, this is more about trying to find one very specific type of person that works for you. I mean, honestly, I feel like the Facebook dating tab is the #1 best dating app out there right now. It's basically the full version of Tinder, except it's not trying to get money from you. But if you want to just use kind of all of the apps at the same time, then go for it. It's not super important which one you use. Now, probably one of the most important things when you are thinking about dating is that you have to be in the right state of mind. Now, if you are somebody who's just really lonely and you're just desperately trying to find somebody, then that is actually going to make it harder for you to meet people. Now, obviously, it's kind of hard to control this, but the absolute best way to go about it is to be very happy with yourself and be happy with where your life is at, but you are looking for somebody who will be a bonus to your life, rather than looking for somebody to become your whole life. And there's a few reasons for this, because if you are perfectly happy the way that you are alone, then you'll be much more patient, meaning you're not going to jump on whatever chance you get just out of desperation, and it'll make you come across as more self-confident and like you have your life together, like you're not looking for somebody that you're trying to rely on. And especially since dating apps are kind of a long grind and it can take a long time to find a good person, like you need to have a lot of patience to just be able to wait it out until the right person comes along. Now, it's always a good thing to keep your options open and be trying online as well as meeting people in person, but something that you need to figure out is that meeting people on a dating app is very different from meeting somebody in person, and you basically have to take a different approach in both cases too. Now, let's say you're out at a bar or something and you see a cute girl and you want to just go and talk to her and you think, hey, she seems nice, and then you have a good conversation, you hit it off from there. Now, in real life, that's perfectly fine. Just go talk to whoever seems cool or anybody who seems attractive. But when it comes to online dating, it's not so simple. Now, a lot of people get the idea that like, oh, if you're on a dating app, just swipe right for every single profile, and that will just increase the chance of you getting the most matches possible. However, there's a couple downsides to doing that. For one, it's becoming widely known that if you just swipe right for everybody, that the apps basically shadow ban you, because they're like, you're clearly not taking this too seriously. We're not going to recommend you to girls, so you're never going to get any matches out of all those anyway. But even if that wasn't the case, it might sound weird, but you don't really want to match with everybody. I mean, the whole purpose of a match is that this is a person that you want to talk to. But anyway, a lot of people will go onto these dating apps treating it just like if it were in real life, where they think, oh, she seems cute, I'll just give her a like. Oh, she seems nice, I'll give her a like. And then just being very generous when giving out likes to plenty of profiles. But you have to set aside a separate mindset for this, because like I said, it's not like meeting people in person. Because, I mean, trust me, I've had plenty of matches where you match with somebody who's like, oh yeah, they seem nice, and then you have some short conversation of small talk, or you just don't message at all. And then it just kind of fizzles out. Maybe you even meet up and go on a date, and it's just kind of boring, you don't have much in common, and then it's just over from there. And so it's easier to just save all of that headache and just not match with people where that's going to be the possibility. So for me, when it comes to swiping, I will pretty much never hit like unless I see something on their profile that I find interesting enough that I would make a unique comment about. So a lot of people like to categorize all people into some sort of scale, where it's from 1 to 10, like, oh, you are a 6 out of 10 on the attractiveness scale, and so that is your entire worth. But if you are thinking of everybody that one-dimensionally, I'll just come out and say, you're kind of stupid. Like, there's so much more that goes into every person than just like, oh, your attractiveness scale of 1 to 10. Because there's a whole different way of seeing people, and that's like the different types of people. Now, of course, not everybody's going to fall into some perfect category, but a lot of people sort of have their own types. And maybe somebody might be more your type while being less attractive than somebody else, but because they are more your type, then maybe you're more attracted to them for that reason. And so I always hate it when people really break down to just like, oh, it's all just about whether you're a 1 through 10, and then you will also pair up with people who are around that same scale too. And so rather than looking at it like that, whenever I'm seeing a profile, I sort of have like a mental scale that I'm looking at. It's not necessarily like a 1 through 10. I mean, there is still a scale with a cutoff somewhere, but I'm taking a lot more into account when deciding whether to swipe yes or no. So let's say that this is the average person's scale. When you first open a profile, it lands right in the middle. And most of it is green, which is falling into you liking them, and then the rest of it is red. And so when you first look at them, if they're attractive, then of course that will move their scale up. If maybe they're a single mom, that'll move it down. Or you might see somebody that where it's like, oh, they're not that cute, so that moves it to the left, but then they have something really interesting about them, so then that moves it farther to the right. So I mean, whatever you like or dislike is different for every person. I mean, we all just have our own mental scale that we put everybody on. I mean, this is basically just a way to visualize something that everybody does subconsciously. And so with a lot of people, the default is a yes, unless there's something that's horribly wrong with them, and then you would give them a no. There are some people that'll just say yes no matter what, and like I said, you're probably not going to get very far with that. But for me, I honestly have a much smaller yes zone and a much larger no zone. So when I first look at a profile, my default is automatically to just say no, unless there are certain things that make them stand out. Now remember when I said that you should be very patient when swiping through people? Do you want to take a guess at how often I actually hit like? I know that it's considered very picky if you're like, you only like 10% of profiles or something, but I personally only hit like for maybe less than 1%. Like, I seriously could swipe for an hour and not hit like on a single profile. And that's not me just saying like, oh, I'm only gonna swipe right for 10 out of 10s. But my main rule when it comes to these dating apps, and keep this in mind, I will only hit like on somebody that I have something specific that I would send a message for. So this means that I will swipe across tons of profiles where I'm thinking, this person is very attractive and she seems very nice, but I don't know what I would say to her if I matched with her, so I'm just gonna say no. Or this person's pretty cool, but they don't seem like they're really my type. I mean, for me, I'm very into like music and computers and a lot of stuff like that. And so if I see a girl that's like, oh, she plays the piano, like that's a big boost. It makes me more likely to hit like. Or if I see a girl that's like extremely outdoorsy and just wants to go camping all the time, like I'm just like, yeah, I mean, you seem pretty cool, but we're probably not each other's type. Now, some of you might be saying like, oh, don't be so picky, give people more of a chance. And if you're saying that, then you're still in the meeting people in real life mindset. Like, sure, if I met somebody in real life that was very different from me, then sure, it's possible we could hit it off. But it's such a massive roadblock when it's already hard to start a decent conversation online that you might as well just skip all of the headache and just not bother with all of that. Because I've had so many matches in the past where I've met and you have some boring small talk for a little while and then you just kind of move on because there wasn't a whole lot keeping you together. It's really hard to get a real vibe of people when you're talking online. So if you are being like very picky and there's a very specific type of person that you're looking for, then you also probably need to do something to make yourself stand out to them as well. I feel like people who are very gothic are a really good example of this, because let's say you see a profile of a girl, that's got the dyed black hair, lots of piercings, lots of tattoos, and I mean, a lot of guys might find her attractive, but she is going to gravitate towards basically the male version of that. So like those are a very specific type that really attract each other. So if you want to find a girl like that, then you have to be the guy like that to find her. And unfortunately, most niches are not 50-50 male and female. There's probably a 5-to-1 male to female ratio of people who like anime and video games, let's say. So it's like, yeah, the girls like that do exist, but there's usually a whole lot more competition. And so take this for an example. Like, for me, having long hair, like let's pretend that 80% of women hate guys with long hair. And then let's say that 15% of women are just indifferent to it. But then there's like 5 women out there who just absolutely love it and really want a guy with long hair. Well, I mean, that's fine with me. Like 5%, there's still lots to pick from. And it also makes me stand out. Because if you're just some very generic person with like no interests and no hobbies, there's nothing about you physically that makes you stand out. You're very average in every way. Like, sure, you might fall into the category of like, oh yeah, he seems like he's fine, maybe I'll get to know him. But you'll have a lot fewer people who are like, oh yeah, that is exactly what I specifically want. And I mean, to be honest, like probably all the girls I've met in the last 5 years have been like really into guys with long hair. So I mean, I'm not saying that you should go grow long hair to stand out, but just find something that sets you apart, that makes you different from everyone else. Because even if that thing that makes you different will be a big turnoff to a ton of people, all you need is to be a turn on to that few that you'll find the one right one. Now, I'm not saying that this is the only way to use dating apps. This is just a way that I have found is the most efficient. But if you do decide to try this, it will mean that you will be swiping no and you'll be passing on lots of very attractive people. There are even some times where I'm like, yeah, they seem cool, but I don't think I'm her type, so I'm just gonna hit no right off the bat. But you know what I mean? Like, just because somebody's attractive doesn't necessarily mean that being with them would be that fun. Like, whenever I see a profile of these, like, Instagram model type people where they've just got way too much makeup on, every picture is some extremely filtered thing, like, right off the bat, I can tell that this person is probably not somebody I want to be around. simply because it just makes them look way too narcissistic, and like it's just going to be such a fake relationship even if it does start. So there is a lot more to judging an online profile than just attractiveness, and if all they have are a few selfies and no bio and like nothing about them, then just say, okay, well, you've got nothing interesting, so I mean, what is there to like? Now, it also doesn't hurt to put something in your bio that says specifically like, I really like this in a person, but it can be kind of a double-edged sword. Like, let's say that somebody puts like, oh, I really like redheads in their bio. Then that means that people who are redheads will see that profile and think like, oh, well, maybe I'm more likely to swipe on them because there's a higher chance that we might match. But then it might also discourage people who are not redheads to ever swipe on them. So I mean, sometimes that can be okay. Sometimes there's really types of people that you just do not want to even bother matching with. So, I mean, eliminating people like that is not that big of a deal. One thing that I personally put on my profile is, show me what makes you interesting. I don't like blank profiles. And so that also tells people that do get a like from me, like, oh, hey, he liked me not just because he saw one picture, he liked it because he actually read the whole thing. But yeah, one other tip that I can throw at you, I know that with some dating profiles, I'm pretty sure Facebook dating does this, I don't know about others, but let's say that you've been swiping for a long time and you're not really getting any matches anymore. If you go back and like redo your profile, you know, swap out some pictures and then put in a new bio, I think that it kind of like refreshes your status in the pool. Like it'll actually start recommending you to people who have already said no to you, but it'll kind of give you another chance with people if you basically come out with a different profile. I mean, I know this because I've seen a lot of the same profiles come through, but like after they've changed some things on it. You can also try just deleting your profile and starting over. I know that new profiles usually get a bit of an advantage, but I know some apps are kind of discouraging like deleting and remaking them, so that might not always work. But overall, hopefully this has been a bit insightful and maybe teach you how to use the dating apps more correctly. I know so many people are just so black-pilled on the whole thing, like, oh, everyone's so shallow, all women are terrible, or all men are terrible, or just like, I'm just gonna stick to MGTOW or something like that. I mean, like, I get it, but you really shouldn't look at everything on a macro scale. Because while you can say something like, oh, women in general are terrible, like, all you really need to do is find one nice person. Like, even if 99% of people are terrible, like, there still are that 1% of people out there that are still nice. And that's why it all just takes so much patience, and that's why I say, you gotta be able to have your own life and be happy on your own, and then just be pleasantly surprised if someone falls into your life. A lot of people like to cast a wide net, like they need so many women. Like really, all you need is that one good one that really likes you. But anyways, I know it can be hard, but just don't give up, and good luck.